Welcome to Phoenix and Flame, my podcast about pushing through and transforming even when you feel like a pile of ash. I'm Dana Skaggs, a psychotherapist known as the Queen of Boundaries. If you are new to Phoenix and Flame, please subscribe so you will be notified of new episodes. Visit Dana Skaggs, DanaSkaggs.com for a free quiz to discover how boundaries are impacting your life. This podcast is not intended as psychotherapy. If you are in crisis, please call 911 or contact your local crisis hotline. Welcome, friends. Whether you're out on a walk, running errands, or relaxing at home, it's wonderful to connect with you. Joining us today is Jackson Calame. Now, Jackson teaches visionary entrepreneurs how to unlock sustainable revenue growth and expand their legacy by becoming a power brand in their market. Now, 96% of businesses fail within the first 10 years. Jackson teaches businesses not only how to avoid failure, but how to win by becoming a true leader in their market. Jackson, welcome to Phoenix and Flame.
I'm excited to be here, Dana. This is going to be fun.
This is amazing. Now, if I have my information correct, you are head of account management for Irrational Marketing, founder of JCal Digital, which is an agency and partner for massive revenue growth, also founder of Passion Pro and founder of First Class Business, not even to mention your podcast, VisionPros Live. Is this all correct?
There's certain gaps in there that are okay to talk about. And yes, founder of First Class Business, founder of VisionPros Live, 0.20% owner at this point, stakeholder of Irrational Marketing. I was part of that team in 2017 and was the head of account management to build out the client fulfillment journey of how to take care of these clients while we were becoming one of the 50 fastest growing startups in Canada. So this was part of that. And, I every once in a while sit in on a board meeting, but they're good without me. They're good to go. And that's the goal, right? Is to help these founders be able to have their cake and eat it too. Richard Branson has like 200 something cakes, and he's doing great. And
Yes.
So does LeBron James. So we can maximize life, right? It's not about grind and hustle. It's about being able to do the things that we love.
I'm attracted to you on multiple levels here. One of them,
I've heard that more than once.
So the first one I'm thinking, and I'm just going to kind of toss this out like spaghetti on a wall, and we're just going to kind of figure out whatever we want to talk about. But one thing is, since I am a visionary entrepreneur myself, so I know what that feels like. I know what that journey feels like. I know the wonderful amazement, the joy of it. And I've also screamed and yelled and thrown things and cried and sobbed and literally curled in a fetal position. I'm not going to lie about that.
Absolutely.
I said that on one of my podcasts because on Phoenix and Flame, I'm very transparent. And I want my guests to be, because we're all there. We might as well just talk about it. We might as well say, I literally crawled into a fetal position. And this is something I learned one time doing that, is that your shoulder starts to hurt. You're on the floor and you're crawled in a fetal position and you're like, I just can't do this anymore. Then what happens is you start getting bored, and then you start getting hungry, and then your shoulder's hurting. And so you're like, well, I could stay in this fetal position for the next hour, but I'm just kind of hungry. I'm getting kind of bored. My shoulder's hurting. I think I'm just going to get up, but when you're an entrepreneur, it's so wide open and it's amazing and joyful, but also all the other things as well. So I'm attracted to that in you. And really, I'm very fascinated with you being a founder of all of these businesses. But see, you started, and again, if my information is correct, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, But if I have my information correct, you started out with a degree in Latin American Studies at Brigham
Oh,
Young University. And so I'm really impressed with you right now. And I want to hear the journey because that's what Phoenix and Flame is about.
yeah.
What happened and what were the pitfalls and what did that feel like? And then like the tagline for Phoenix and Flame is pushing through even when you feel like you're sitting in a pile of ash, pushing through and
Absolutely.
transforming. So I want to hear this journey of yours and what were the positions that you were in where you felt like I can't do this anymore and yet you did. And how
If
did you do that?
if you have your childhood blanket nearby, it's time to grab it. Um, all these fun accolades to start with. Again, we live in a market, Dana, where so many Instagrammers and influencers look like they have the perfect world and perfect life. And I went
Mhm.
through that phase where I had that. I wasn't faking it. We had highlights for our life. At the same time, real life was not just the highlights, right? The things I just talked about. Now let's go back to the real accolades. Junior year of high school, I told my mom, Mom, I'm either graduating early or dropping out. Take your pick. Yeah, I graduated early. Not because mom wanted me to. Not because I was on my way to summa cum laude or whatever they call those. I still don't know what those mean. I was
Mhm.
ready to go and I needed to move on. I needed to find my freedom, my opportunity to figure out who I was. So I graduate early. I go to Brigham Young University. I got a 4.0 in dating. I got a 0.33 in everything else. That's hard to do, by the way. Like, you really
You
have to
said,
like
did you say
try.
a 4.0 in dating?
Oh yeah,
That's
absolutely.
what she said.
That's what I did all day. I went on like, I think I went out with 27 different girls within my first 3 weeks of being at the school. And I thought that was like everything, my ego was through the roof. And I was excited I grew up with my mom and 5 older sisters. So I'm talking about pretty wholesome dates. And I wasn't doing what your typical Netflix and chill guy does.
Gotcha.
But I was having a lot of fun. I was playing pool at night. I was playing ultimate frisbee during the day. There was something called a class I probably should have been in. I went to my girlfriend's classes more than mine once I did establish a girlfriend. Like, I wasn't there for the right reasons. I didn't know how to use the university ecosystem. I didn't grow up with that understanding. So then I go on this mission. I'm gonna fast forward a lot. I go on this mission. I'm down in Uruguay for 2 years. I have this incredible moment where I'm not in fetal position, but this little boy walks up to me who looks like my oldest nephew, and he's starving. And I knew this kid. I had been working with his family for a while, and he asked me for bread, and I didn't have anything with me. I couldn't take him into town. It's like 9:30 at night. We're rushing home. We're not supposed to be out that late, and so I have to send him home. And my nephew looks at me with these eyes of just sheer disappointment, and he ducks his head down and walks around me, and I'm starting to like panic and starting to, I'm really like shaking at this point. I'm looking down, I'm like, I got a nice shirt on, a nice tie, nice shoes, a nice backpack. Like I felt so filthy because of how clean and
Mm.
how rich that I was compared to my starving nephew that I just sent home. And I'm thinking, okay, tomorrow I'm going to go to the rice fields. That's how you can get an easy job here. I'm gonna make some money. I'm gonna make enough money to open one of these little computer stores because that's what people do here. They open these computer stores and they rent the computers out, and I'm gonna make enough money to teach this town how to make an economy work. I mean, I probably didn't even know the word economy at the time. Like I just knew it's what I needed to do, and whack, like I felt my face go to the right. I heard a voice that said, Jackson, why don't you go home? Take advantage of your education for once. Learn about business and help as many towns like this as you possibly can.
Ooh. Mm.
And
Mm.
I couldn't argue with the logic and with the idea that plan was better than mine. I did argue because that's just who I am. I like to understand the why. And I
Yes.
said, but isn't that selfish? I didn't want to abandon that town. I didn't want to leave and go back to all the privileges that I had in America. I wanted to stay in the fight. But I didn't get an answer for the second question. Isn't that selfish? I just knew I needed to come back and do exactly what message I had received. And so I came back. I went back to the BYU School of Marriott Business, trying to weasel my way in. I'm a smooth talker. I can figure that out. And this counselor didn't laugh at me. He didn't condescend at me, but he did say lovingly, with as much of a no as possible, son, I've done some stupid things in my life too. And I had to adjust my path. You're going to be fine, but you aren't getting into this school. And so I walked out of that. Now my dad, who had started to pay for school, had a $50,000 debt from somebody who didn't pay him. He probably didn't deserve the $50,000. Just putting that out there. But here I was, no possibility for grants, no possibility for scholarships is what I did the first time. And in this days of, I'm not even going to get into the business school anyway, but that's what I'm supposed to do. What the heck do I do now? And I found network marketing around that time. And I started to learn some principles of business and success and some great Darren Hardy and Jim Rohn and John Maxwell stuff. And I realized if they're not going to let me into the business school, I need to find a business owner who's willing to take a chance on me. And I need to learn how to professionally beg my way into doors, and get opportunities. And so I went to Brigham Young University and I studied Latin American studies. I speak Spanish because of my time in Uruguay and my second failed marriage. So these accolades, these trophies, right? People can get addicted to or care what they want about the authority or the influence and all of that. Again, I'm a single father of 4. I'm twice divorced. I do my best to honor the 2 mothers of my children. I love being a dad more than anything in life. And I know the importance and value of this call to help people. In this case, as I mentioned, the world of Latinos, but our program Opportunities now has launched in India and it's launched in the Philippines as well. And I live very much to help and serve the individuals who they don't even know that LinkedIn exists. How fortunate are we? They don't even know that Canva exists. They don't know that Upwork exists. They don't know that they can get a job on Fiverr. They've never heard of programs like that. When we can help them understand those programs exist and we can help them go from $1 a day wages to $4 to $5 an hour, like that gets me up. That gets me excited. That's what I love. And in the India, Philippines, and Pakistan situations, I haven't worked outside of Sri Lanka. Most of the people I interview from there, Dana, they cry in my interviews. They cry. And they say, Jackson, I've never had an American listen to me and treat me the way that you have, with the respect, care about me as a person. And I say on behalf of my country, I am sorry. Yes. And I understand. And I was like that too at one point. I treated my VAs with the same virtual abuse that so many others do. Not virtual assistant, virtual abuse, which is let's treat them like we bought them at a Walmart, like a pair of shoes. And let's discard them in 3 weeks if they don't end up being perfect at what they do and just hire the next 5-star rep, right? I know that's harsh. I know that's a very hard thing for some people to hear. Yeah. But yeah, the Phoenix process I was meditating on this morning, Dana. I love your podcast. I love that you gravitate. This book changed me in so many ways. This Boundaries and Marriage book, right? You can see it looks like a dog ate it. No, that was just me carrying it everywhere and trying to digest this book. And I had to tape it all back together and make sure that, this book is so powerful. And I had to learn a lot about healthy boundaries. And I'm 36. I feel like a phoenix like a perennial phoenix. Couple times a year. I got to go through that burning process and reinvigoration of soul and spirit. So,
well, let me ask you this, Jackson, because I'm listening to you describe your journey up to this point, and you mentioning boundaries. I'm kind of find myself wondering how you set boundaries along the way so that you could protect your passion, because it comes through you. I can see it. I can feel it. And when you're privileged enough to get into a position, and that's how I feel about boundaries. And I have my own story about why I'm passionate about that. I'm not going to get into all that right now. But when you have a passion like that and you want that so much for other people, you have to set, because if you don't set those boundaries, you're not going to realize your passion. So I'm wondering,
Yes, you do.
Jackson, how did you have to set boundaries along the way so you could protect your passion and you could keep funneling your energy into it?
So many ways. We have so many opportunities to do that in life. And I think oftentimes we allow fear or doubt to overcome that. Um, you know, I'm like literally praying and thinking through right now what's going to be most important for the audience related to that. That's a big boundary for me. Right, is I need to control my mouth, right? Control that. I need to bridle that passion and say, let me steer it, right? So the very first instance I remember related to that, I was actually teaching a sales class, and they said, "When did you learn how to sell?" And I thought through my career, and then I realized, you know what? When I was 3 years old, um, I remember running through the master bedroom, master bathroom, master closet as I heard my parents screaming at each other. I jumped over the bed, pushed them apart, and I yelled just loud enough for them to hear, "Stop yelling." I mean, anybody else with an alcoholic father could have had a very different demise than I did. That could have been very bad. And my parents, they did. They stopped yelling. They talked to me about it. I remember, and I don't remember the rest. I know it calmed it down. Right. That was my first instance of having that type of influence. That was a boundary. Said I can't do this. I don't want my parents, my family to be going through this. And I've been a mediator for a lot of friends and family throughout life. And I've had the gift of being able to turn to love when it's least desired, right? When it's like, I don't want to love in this situation. They say when should you pray? The moment you don't want to. Right. When you don't want to, when you feel like you can't meditate, when you feel like you shouldn't, that you just want to like use your vengeance or your revenge or whatever else. In most circumstances of my life, I've taken that opportunity to lean into love. I know fetal position very well, Dana. When my first marriage was falling apart, and I won't go into the details on that, but I found myself doing lots of dishes, doing 7 loads of laundry, any kinetic therapy that I could to kind of distract myself. And, with my young kids asleep, going to the closet, crawling up in fetal position and just asking God, where are you, man? What's going on? Why is my marriage going like this right now? And it is in those moments, though, where we don't have our friends by our side because it's too late, or we choose not to turn to alcohol, or we choose not to distract ourselves with a Netflix movie, or we, again, we choose. I had to choose, I shouldn't say I had to, right? I will never take back what took me to that moment to get to my certainty and knowing who my creator is and knowing that, you know what, I belong. It doesn't matter what. And then I found that TED Talk a couple years later, that says everything we know about addiction is wrong. And that TED Talk is mind blowing. He tells us in that TED Talk, he proves scientifically that if people knew that they belonged in society and life, if they belonged to a community or something greater than just themselves, we would not have a problem with addictions. And I could feel the power of that because I unlocked that super key, knowing it doesn't matter who wants to throw me out. Nobody can stop the fact that I belong. So
Mhm.
those are some elements of boundaries. And you have a beautiful assessment on it. I'm actually sending it to my team right after this. I saw it right before we jumped on, and that assessment of the power of no.
Mhm.
That's an incredibly important boundary that a lot of us, especially the people pleasers and the givers of the world, don't actually use. And we talked about it, and we made great strides last week as a team to talk about the power of saying no, because who wants to say no to a multi-entrepreneur, that's alpha and driven and passionate? And I'm like, team, it's okay. Like, it's all right. You can tell me no. In fact, they get excited when you tell me no.
Well, we're talking about when we get kind of caught up in the people pleasing and the keeping the peace and this kind of thing. If we're setting healthy boundaries, we're going to ensure that we're going to be able to keep going, because when we're wrapped up in people pleasing, we're so focused on this other person being pleased with us,
Yeah.
which, by the way, their pleasure is technically in their brain, which we can't reach. So, it's
Tried.
just,
Tried.
whether they decide they're going to be pleased with us or not, okay, you do you, dude. It's just like, but when we have that boundary, we have this freedom to continue going, because there will be, and I'm sure you've run into this, and I'm interested to hear your experience of this. There will be detractors. There will be those people in your path that will say, "Who do you think you are? What are
All
you
the time.
doing?" And whether it's other people that are saying this, and there will be, because they don't really believe in you, they don't believe in your vision, they don't know what you have in your soul that you can feel in there. But
Yes.
you also have those voices in your own head, those
Yes, you do.
doubting things like, are you really delusional?
Oh, yeah.
I
Oh, that's a
really
good
kind of
word.
I really kind
Oh,
of feel like I'm pulling that out of my own, because I've got a keynote coming up next month, and there's a part of my mind that's off to the side going, but maybe this is all just a farce. Maybe this whole thing is just one big delusion. It's not really going to happen. You're just making this up in your head. And so we have those voices, but also the people in our lives that when we're moving forward, they are detracting. They're, for whatever reason,
lots of reasons.
lots of reasons. They're saying things, they're not being supportive, and that kind of resonates with that doubt in our own mind, and that can pull us down into a spiral.
Yes.
So entrepreneurs like you are, and I am as well. But Jackson, I really would like to hear you kind of share some of these stories of what was it like for you, and what did they say? What have you heard, both externally and internally? What did you do about that?
Oh, sometimes it crushed me. Many times it crushed me. First, Dana, I can't think of a better topic and a better leader to be a keynote speaker. I would love to see you keynote speak. And I hope you remember that. I hope that you go in realizing the power and value of what you do, and what you're gifting to the world. We need you on that stage.
Thank you.
Whether it's somebody who loves you and is trying to protect you, and that could be because they failed their own dreams. That could be because they don't want to see you get hurt. They might be a healer by nature. My mom's a healer. This probably won't be her favorite segment ever. And I know she loves me. I know she does everything she can to support me. She's one of the wisest people I know. Everybody wants to adopt my mom. And my mom has a loving tendency to try to disrupt any entrepreneurial thing that I've ever done, and get her son back into the safety net of corporate America.
Right.
Right. And she comes out of the movie The Greatest Showman, which I hadn't seen. And she called me up and she said, I think I finally understand you. So I just saw a movie about you. And I was like,
Wow.
really? I went and watched it and I was like, oh my gosh, like this guy went through everything to make this, this thing come to life. If you haven't seen it, you got to see it. Beautiful.
I haven't, and I think I'm going to write that down right now.
Music wise, oh my gosh, it is brilliant. And the backstory of Hugh Jackman, I think breaking his nose and then having to sing when he wasn't supposed to, and the beautiful story, but like the behind the scenes footage of that, just what an amazing story and movie. Anyway, going back, so there's people who love you and they want to protect you, but we're not meant to be coddled. We're not meant to stay in the nest. We're meant to fly, and we have to have the hard experiences. From a very young age, my cousins were drinking and smoking. We were 6 years old, 6 when that was going on, and I decided I wasn't going to do it. And I didn't want to be a part of that, and that led to an extreme amount of ridicule and bullying. And I'd walk home crying. I didn't feel on top of the world. I didn't feel like I was doing something grand. I just was staying true to some principle that seemed right to me, and was taught to me. And I don't really know why, but I definitely didn't feel like a phoenix. I definitely didn't feel like I was strong. I was more stubborn than anything else, probably. And it created a stubbornness where I said, you know what? Because of the way they treat me about this, I will never do this. I created a weird sense of pride of like, no, like never. And I'm so grateful for that, because a lot of my family members on that side of the family are alcoholics. And I can feel that addictive pull. Like, I don't need another challenge in life. I
Right.
don't want that. I don't want to risk that. So those are elements. But I remember a friend, my early days of using StreamYard and diving into like trying to influence people. And he said, some friend, he said, when are you going to stop with this washed up discount Tony Robbins stuff? Oh, that hit deep. I immediately blocked the guy. I was like, oh, this one, he's not a real friend anyway.
Mm.
But I pretty much stopped for a while. I pretty much said, you know what? I made excuses. I was busy in life. I got lots of things to distract me and moved
Mhm.
on those. And remember, I was in Uruguay. I had that experience where I knew I needed to launch this thing for all sorts of towns worldwide. I mean, I went through phases of trying to launch it and pulling away and getting home and trying to help people from Facebook. And right before going to college, I had been trying to help people in Uruguay for a month that I could no longer access. And Facebook wasn't what it is today. You have video calls and all that. You could very
Mhm.
limited. And I was stressed. I was traumatized. I couldn't reintegrate into the American culture very well. I couldn't go into a shopping mall without feeling incredibly overwhelmed. I'd forgotten about what all it was. And all I could see were all these incredibly clean houses and clean buildings, and felt that same feeling I had in that street where I felt dirty because of it. And I felt like we had all of our priorities wrong, and I was super judgmental, and I had to finally let go. And I had to just drop everything I was trying to do for Uruguay because mentally, spiritually, like I couldn't take it.
Mhm.
I had to figure out who I was and what I was going to do for a living and like where I was at. At least that's how I felt, right? Whether it's a justification or a realization, I've learned that it doesn't really matter. There's this great book, Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. And in that book, she
Mm.
talks about restructuring our DNA that gets, that trauma ends up kind of screwing up and literally messes with our identity. And she gives a great pass, amazing pass for how to get back to it. But the thing that really stood out to me is she said that namaste and aloha mean the same thing. And they both mean my soul honors your soul, which her
Mm.
translation of was, I am perfect the way that I am right now. You are perfect the way that you are right now. And change is also perfect. I would add in, maybe I wouldn't. I'm positive change. Maybe it's bad change. I don't know. What path do we need to take, right, in order for our lives to move in the direction where we go? I don't know. Maybe I need shoved in a hole like a seed, and to sit in the dark for a while.
Mhm.
While I start to cultivate and grow and sprout. But that concept of namaste, I wish to help more people understand how to let go of the internal judgment, the external judgment, the acceptance that we're good. And I will always be excited to change. I will always be excited to improve. I know what that means for my life to be able to become a better self.
That you talking about acceptance is huge. Um, and listening to you talk, it reminds me of a quote. And you know how it floats around the back of your mind. You're like, I'm trying to get it. I'm trying to get it. And I finally got the quote that resonates with what you just said. It was from Carl Rogers. He was one of the forerunners of psychology, and he said, "When we accept ourselves just as we are, then we can change." Because I run into so many people that have this laundry list of things I have to once I've checked this box, once I've checked this box, once I've checked this box, once I've done all these things, then I will accept myself and I will accept my situation. But the thing of it is that no matter how many boxes they check, more boxes keep getting added on the bottom. You never reach the end of the damn list,
Yes.
right?
You
So
just
it's
create
like,
new ones or you feel inadequate still. In fact, so two big stories on that. Johnny Manziel, the former number one draft
mhm,
pick, is currently doing a speaker circuit, I believe. If you look at Fox News, there's an article that just came out yesterday.
yep.
And I look at that as a strategist, and I have my different thoughts and feelings. But one of the things that he's training on and learning to discuss is the reality that, and he says, when he was on stage getting drafted, was the loneliest, most out of himself moment of his life. where he felt
Interesting.
disconnected and like it was. And that we hear that all the time where people get their successes only to find out there's a part of them that's empty. They haven't really aligned to their purpose. And
True.
we're all trying to figure it out, whether we're on the top or not. And so in seventh grade, I was the section leader for the trumpets for our band. And in the state of Texas, we won second in state, my solo for Shenandoah.
That's
And
awesome.
it was an amazing opportunity. I felt so inadequate doing it. I felt terrified in the process. And then I hit second in state, and my immediate thoughts and feelings were, I'm never going to be worth anything. If I'm second in state as a seventh grader, and that means there's 50 states of people who are better than me. That means that all the eighth graders, ninth graders, 10th graders, 11th graders, 12th graders, the college, the professionals, there's never going to be a spot for me in this world. I had this incredible obsession that I say incredibly toxic obsession with having to be the best. And
Mhm.
if I wasn't the best, then I wouldn't be worth anything to the world. I don't know what all. I know a lot of things contributed to that reality, but painting the contrast. After I had a back surgery, I was also second runner up to athlete of the year. And so I thought I was going to have a great athletic
Well, what was your
career,
sport?
anything with a ball, anything
Okay.
with a ball.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
I love basketball with a passion. It's right behind me here, LeBron James, and I was
Okay.
really great at soccer. But I mean, anything with a ball. I would ride my bike with rollerblades on, dribbling a basketball with a tennis ball in my pocket and a hockey stick across my handlebars. Looking
You
for
are
kids.
cracking me up, Jackson.
I love sports. I didn't want to do anything but sports in life.
And
Yeah.
plus, you are a multitasker. You are someone who
Through
is
and through.
very smart, and that's why you needed to graduate early and you needed to move on because your brain processes a lot of things very quickly and you
Correct.
get bored easily. And, listening to
Mm,
you talk reminds me of something, and I wanted to share this, and then I want to make sure that my listeners know how to get access to you because I'm certain they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I've got to get in touch with Jackson. Because I see a lot of myself resonating in you.
yeah.
And that feeling of if I can't be the best, then what's the point? Right. If I can't and seeing other people that are better, it's like you want to be like them and emulate them and learn from them. But at the same time, you're kind of annoyed that you're not already them. And so it's kind of like I remember reaching out to the publisher of Choice Magazine, which is it's a coaching magazine. It's huge for all the coaches. And I was talking to him and I remember saying, I feel like a cup of water in the ocean. And I asked him, I said, a cup of water is worth nothing in the ocean. Who gives a shit, right? It's just a cup of water in the frickin' ocean. But you know what? To a starving, to someone who's in the desert, a cup of water could mean life.
Yeah.
And so my question, what is a cup of water worth? And
Mm,
so it's like us taking our cup. And yes, there might be an ocean out there. There's authors ad nauseum. There's keynote speakers ad nauseum. There's podcasters ad nauseum. There's thousands and millions of them out there. It's like, why do I want to jump in this? What am I going to add? All these other people are doing all these amazing things. What in the world am I going to add to that? I'm just a cup of water in the frickin' ocean. But again, a cup of water to someone in the desert could save their life. And I feel like I feel myself resonating with you. And also because the question you ask the people that come on your podcast is, what is your passion? What is your vision?
yeah.
And how are you pushing that? And that's kind of why do we push our vision? Because we are a cup of water. And yes, there might be an ocean out there, but there's also someone who's in the desert that needs our cup. And
Yep.
that's why we push. That's why we push through and become the phoenix and face all these detractors and our own doubts to keep going because of
Correct.
that person in the desert that we're trying to reach, that it does matter, you know.
Absolutely. There's very few stories of failures that become well known. Right. And that's something that while it's kind of obvious to realize, I think what's hard to realize is that a lot of the people who don't make it, they focus on what I was focusing on, being better than others. And
Mm.
there's no power in that because usually you can only see who's in the room. And so what happens is you end up giving your best effort to beat that person, but then you stop trying. You never actually develop into your full potential. So I was after a back surgery running around a track at night. Nobody was there. And it starts to rain. I had every reason to stop running. Here I was dad bod, no longer like going to break any records or anything. And it's getting to the last lap. And I'm, in the last lap of running. I don't think we all hate running, but most of us do. I certainly don't like it. But I know I can just slow down or I can go home. But I'm still hitting my pace. And I think of LeBron James and I'm like, what would he do right now? And I realized, oh, he crushed this lap. And for the very first time in my life, I think it was 30, 31, 32. For the very first time in my life, with nobody watching, just me and myself, I crushed that lap and did my absolute best. And I ran an extra 25 yards after. And as I'm breathing through that, I get this thought. That's what it feels like to be LeBron James.
Mm.
He's been able to do this his entire life, pretty much. He's been able to lock into that. And not because of the show, not because of who's watching, because he wants to be his best. And if I lock in to wanting to be my best and I start to do this in everything that I do in life, that's the only way I'll ever really tap into my full potential. It's the only way. And the byproduct, you just feel the beauty of the byproduct of that. I was like, that's the life I want. That's what I want for me. No longer do I need to worry about who beat me on the track or who didn't. And so now I don't have to worry about the measuring stick. I don't have that demotivation of, okay, cool, I already won. No, I'm going to go. I'm going to make this happen. And I'm going to do it for me. There's a lot of good feelings that come when we start doing things for ourselves, when we start loving ourselves,
Yeah.
right enough to show up for ourselves. I wish more people could tap into that and do just that.
Hmm. Jackson, I think you and I can help people do that.
Let's do it.
We continue to reach out and we can help people step into their space and accept things and learn to love themselves, maybe for the first time ever.
Yeah.
So let me ask you now, the website that I have is go.firstclassbusiness.io. Is that
That's
where you
wonderful.
want my listeners to go to?
You're welcome to. If you're an entrepreneur, feel free to check that out. If you haven't read the E-Myth, you might want to start there first. Michael Gerber breaks down how hard entrepreneurship is. So if you're looking for an easy path, firstclassbusiness.io is not the path. There's a lot to learn before going. I mean, business is like a 300-page recipe book of like all these easy recipes. But the challenge is cooking the right food at the right temperature at the right time while managing your inventory, making sure you don't have spoilage, making sure the guest is happy, and putting out a rinse and repeat recycle 200 times during a day, 2,000 times during a day, right?
Hmm.
That is not easy. And
Yeah.
so we don't have an easy button for business. If I'd prefer people start with going to our podcast,
Okay.
visionproslive.com, and becoming one of our guests.
Okay.
There's a button to be our guest. Come on, do an interview with us. Tell us about your vision. Tell us about what you're up to. If the business world would make a transition from focusing on services and offers that nobody cares about.
Hmm.
I mean, nobody cares about the next Disney movie that's coming out unless they're a Disney fanatic. There's a sense of belonging. There's a sense of relationship. There's a sense of know, like, and trust that needs to be established first for true loyalty, for healthy relationships to exist. So Vision Pros gives us the chance to potentially fall in love with the vision of the person that we're talking to. If we fall in love with that and they fall in love with what we're doing, now we can build a healthy relationship based on
Love it.
something that's far bigger than just the services and the product. Then we can figure out if doing business together makes sense. But we
Yeah.
love hearing people's visions, honoring people where they're at with that vision. And, then if it makes sense and they want to ask us about working with us, then we can go that route. But I try to steer people away from looking at the transactional relationship because I don't want somebody to buy my best side. they got to know who I am as a whole person. They got to know who our team is. We got to know who they are.
Mhm.
I'm an auditor. I'm not just a growth revenue guy. I've got to make sure that when Dr. Eric Berg came to work with us at Video Power, it was my responsibility to tell him, you have the worst website I've ever seen. This is a doctor with 106,000 subscribers on YouTube at the time. Right. So that was a difficult message to deliver. And
Yeah.
that guy ate it up like a champion. He said, call me Eric. I was terrified. I'd let him know what he needed to know. He's at over 12 million subscribers worldwide now.
Wow.
Right. He changed and overhauled his brand on a dime based on that little feedback from some kid just named Jackson working in a role at Video Power. But don't get me wrong, videopower.com. I love Jake. Jake's one of the best mentors I've ever had in my life. So anything I can do to help people, I absolutely will. And I'm looking for the people who want to align with people who are like them, and let's go build. We got 8 billion people to help.
I love
Let's
this.
do it.
Jackson, I so appreciate you being willing to take some of your time and your energy and just your honesty, your emotions, and bring that to me and to my listeners today. Thank you very, very much.
There's not a stage I would rather be on right now. You have a beautiful podcast. I love, again, everything that I've seen about you, Dana, and I look forward to having you on my show as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Listeners, I know you have heard so many things today from Jackson that has touched your soul, and you just want to kind of connect and find out if there's something out there for you, if you can like find a path for your vision, for your passion, and help it to grow, then just reach out. Go to visionproslive.com. Be a podcast guest on Jackson. He has a wonderful team. I've already been on his podcast twice, and it was a wonderful experience. And just go and reach out, and let's just make these connections. I know that this episode is going to be fantastic. I would strongly encourage you to copy and paste the link in text, in email, put it on your favorite social media sites so that we can grow our Phoenix and Flame community, so that we know that we are together, we are connected, we are not alone. I'm Dana on Phoenix and Flame.